Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. These are the post-fight reviews for the Fabio Wardley and Richard Lartey fight, as well as Alen Babic against Tom Little. So I'm not going to dwell too much on the action because these were all over in 2 and 3 rounds respectively, so we'll whip through and then thoughts on what it means and the what next, because interesting performance by Babic, sort of the same again, but we also had Fabio Wardley impressing versus Richard Lartey, stopping the Ghanaian in 2 rounds. He's clearly ready for much better and tougher fights, and that's where we'll start. So over inside 2 rounds, and it sort of came out of nowhere, the stoppage. There were a couple of jabs that seemed to sort of shake up Richard Lartey to some extent. He just backed up a bit. And then Fabio Wardley followed up with this swiping left hook, comes round with a right hook. It was all in fast succession, in combination, and Richard Lartey just goes down, and down hard, like a sack of potatoes off a cliff, and the referee within a couple of seconds waves it off. Richard Lartey was not in a good way. The left hook, it looked to have sort of caught on the sort of air, sort of, that sort of region, and the right hook only looked to be a bit of a cuffing shot. It was partially on the gloves, but obviously the weight of the punches, and he was shook up from the jabs moments earlier. He didn't really know where he was. The oxygen was straight in, and it was several minutes before he was sort of up and about and looking more lucid. He had to sit on a stool, take some oxygen, and just recover before they could actually, get to holding up Fabio Wardley's hands. And you sort of see the replay, because I thought it must have been clean shots that took him out. The speed blistering from Wardley, the right hand that sort of closed the show, that hook, wasn't a clean shot, but the weight of the punches and those earlier jabs, Lartey was done, and it was a very impressive stoppage. I mean, there is a couple of questions though. I mean, is Richard Lartey just maybe damaged goods now? You have to ask that question. He has been seen as durable before. He had a bit of a fun fight with Daniel Dubois, took some heavy shots. He recently was in with Nathan Gorman, went the distance, he got touched up a bit, but nothing too big in that one. But I think 2 things are clear from this fight. Fabio Wardley, and I spoke about this in the pre-fight preview, the speed is a problem for a lot of heavyweights. They're just not seeing some of these punches coming. He's got good timing, and even though he wasn't landing clean, there was still a lot of weight behind some of those punches, and the jab was able to shake Lartey up. Also, the power probably better than some people expect. Maybe it's not that sort of one punch turn your lights out, because this was a couple of jabs and then a combination. But clearly he's got some pop, and we have seen that. Will that carry up at a better level? I mean, because let's not overstate this, Richard Lartey is of a certain level, and we've been finding out where that is at. He's not the greatest fighter in the world, but he was seen as tough and durable and likely to go a few rounds. But I thought that for this fight, Fabio Wardley, with his quickness, the hand speed, that he could potentially take Richard Lartey out here, potentially within 5 rounds, and maybe even sooner than Daniel Dubois, who took Lartey 4 rounds. So in the context of that, it's an impressive performance. Obviously, people will make comparisons. Can we read too much into it? It's really hard to say. Richard Lartey, a few more miles on the clock now, a few more losses since that Dubois fight. But overall, very good performance by Fabio Wardley. And the what next is the question. They said that he's going to be out on the January 30th card. That's the Dillian Whyte versus Alexander Povetkin, the scheduled rematch. He's 10-0 at the moment. I would like to see him in with, maybe some former world title challengers, something of that ilk. Those guys that we know are sort of on the decline, but maybe they can go some rounds. It's resume builders, some name recognition. I mean, you can think the likes of Amarius Vak, maybe even Johan Dorper. Those guys are well past their prime, and I think for someone like Wardley, what we've seen so far, he can deal with them and get a win in those fights. Other names, maybe a Christian Hammer, Lucas Brown. These are the sorts of names that I think they'll end up pitching him in with at some point. If it's not next, it's going to be soon. People on that sort of level that they're well past their prime at this point. Maybe go some rounds. Maybe he can look good. Get a bit of credit off their names and what they have done in the past. But I think it will remain at a certain level for some time. And Wardley has sort of said he's still learning, he's still developing. He doesn't want to be pushed too quickly, but he is ready for a step up. What that level will be at, we'll soon see, but impressive performance by Fabio Wardley. Certainly, I think people are starting to take a bit more notice of him, and for the right reasons. He is a guy who looks to be improving fight to fight. The speed is impressive, and yeah, I like what I see so far. And if he was to face Alen Babic, the guy who we're about to talk about, Fabio Wardley stops Alen Babic, and no doubt about that. Maybe for some that will be controversial, but Alen Babic still not completely sold on him because he's fighting at a certain level, and the hype around what he's doing sort of outstrips what he's really done in the opponents that he's faced. I think Wardley has faced better opposition so far. But yeah, of Alen Babic, another fun fight. Against Tom Little, it was an opening round of very competitive. Little was using his size, leaning on Babic. He was keeping range at times, flicking out that jab, having success. You had Alen Babic for the first part looking to... no, he was a little bit circumspect to what I was expecting, but then he started to get going, letting his hands go. And after about the second round, because Babic started to take over in that second round, you sort of thought, yeah, Little is exhausted here. He looks done. And Babic himself was, really sucking in the big ones between rounds. But Little looked to be slightly worse for wear. And he was actually down twice in this fight, and the second time obviously ended the fight. But exhaustion seemed to play some sort of part in both. By the time that he was dropped, he was taking a lot of punishment, and he just didn't really sort of seem to be really in the fight. There was a few moments of success, but obviously at the end of the day, the unrelenting pressure, the volume, too much for Tom Little. But this is a performance where, again, very fun, came forward, threw a lot of punches, it looked good. But the opposition was only at a certain level. So I think people should just keep expectations in check, not go crazy about it. Because at the moment, he's facing guys that are sort of there or thereabouts on the same sort of level. Little is about English level. Niall Kennedy, probably you could say, relatively speaking, the same, as well as Shaundale Winters. It was described by the commentary and Eddie Hearn as another step up. For me, it's just a step sideways. And I think more of these are to come. At the moment, he's 6-0, so he is being built like a prospect, a traditional prospect. I'm not seeing these massive step-ups that they keep talking about. And I would expect if they were to, for the next thing, it will be something similar again. I don't think they're going to be aiming too high. They want to ride this Alen the Savage Babic sort of gimmick that they've got for as long as possible. They want to build him up over time, and that will mean the opponents will be at a certain level. But overall, as Alen Babic said after the fight, are you not entertained? And the answer to that is yes, it was a fun performance, but largely what we expected. Tom Little hasn't won a fight in, 3 or 4 years now. And, although he was in better condition for this fight, there still was the open question, how much better would he be for that? Would he be able to take the pressure and the volume? And the answer was no. But Babic did stop Little faster than Hrgovic and Dubois stopped him, but very different fights. So hard to read too much into that, although I'm sure there will be some saying on the basis of that he's in line with them or as good a prospect as them, which to me, he hasn't really proven that so far. Very different fights, hard to take too much from it. Little, it was clear his cardio let him down. He was exhausted, he was ground down. It was the 5th defeat in a row for Little. So let's keep it in context. But a very fun performance. And who would we like to see him up against next? Even though the January 30th date that he'll be on, Eddie Hearn said it'll be another step up. As he said, Little was a step up. I'm thinking it'll still be somewhere on the same level. Will it be maybe a Kamil Sokolowski, which for me, I think that's, and compared to some of these other guys, he's relatively on the same level, maybe presents different challenges, he can punch back, his record sort of belies his skill level, or maybe a Cash Ali or something of that level. I don't think it's going to be too much higher. Or maybe someone who might be someone who they could bring in, Senad Gashi. We've seen him before in some fun fights, especially early in his career. He kind of did this whole Alen Babic, swing for the fences, a lot of first-round knockouts before Babic was even doing it. But when Senad Gashi came up against the likes of Derek Chisora, Carlos Takam, he wasn't on that level. He couldn't do that. He couldn't maintain what he'd done earlier in his career. But Gashi versus Babic, I think that would be quite a fun fight. What do you make of it all? Alen Babic, fun fight again, gets the win versus Little. Fabio Wardley looks impressive again, stops Richard Lartey in 2 rounds. Drop a comment loud enough and hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.